This year's draft class has an incredible group of pass catchers, and fun fact, they're not all wide receivers. This tight end class is better than you think, so let's go over my top 10 tight ends in the 2024 NFL Draft. At number 10, I have Tanner McLachlan out of Arizona, coming in at 6'5", 244 pounds. He was initially a wide receiver in high school and was a zero-star recruit. I think largely just because he went to high school in Canada, so he probably wasn't that well known of a recruit. But he ends up going to Southern Utah, where he starts to make the transition to tight end, and unfortunately they had the 2020 season canceled because of the Rona, and then he tears his ACL in the spring season, which leads him to miss the actual 2021 fall season, and he ends up just going to walk on at Arizona, and ends up paying off, where he earned a scholarship by the end of the year, had the extra year of eligibility. He said, okay, let me try to make my name as an NFL prospect, and he ends up having a really solid season for the Wildcats, having over 500 yards, 4 tutties, and all in all, like I see him as like, you see the speed there at 4.61, and he's got really good straight line speed. He has experience all over, from wide receiver, outside, into the slot, even in-line experience, and then special team experience. That's going to get you drafted, in all honesty. And he's got these long strides where he can cover a lot of ground quick, and he's actually shown some pretty good yak ability, yards after the catch, where it doesn't matter if he's trying to make someone miss or just kind of eating contact. He's not afraid to lower the shoulder if he needs to. However, I kind of worry about him as a blocker. I don't think the play strength's there. I think he probably needs to put on a little bit more mass. He doesn't, despite being 6'5", his length isn't exactly ideal. So you're probably using him more as maybe a seam threat or a big slot. Not the most crisp route runner. Did run a limited route tree there at Arizona, but there'll be times where he kind of rounds out his routes. So he feels a bit tweenerish, and it actually really reminds me a ton of former Miami tight end Will Mallory. Wow, why was that tough to say, man? Maybe it's because I really didn't like him coming out. But honestly, he's made a solid mark for himself as a tight end in the NFL, but more of a depth guy. And I think that can be McLachlan, because the dude has the special team experience. At number 9, I have Jaheim Bell out of Florida State. He initially spent 3 years at South Carolina before transferring to Florida State this past season. As Florida State, they brought in a lot of highly regarded recruits trying to push for that national championship that, honestly, they probably deserved a shot at. But that's neither here or there. We're here to talk about Jaheim Bell, and yes, he's a bit undersized at 6'2". 241, though. He's above that 240 threshold, so feel good about that. And let's just kind of go ahead and get like the bat out of the way, because he is a bit of an awkward size. You do worry about the play strength. And even if you see him more as like this F tight end, or a guy that can maybe play like a fullback, H-back role where he's kind of this downhill blocker, I do have doubts about him as a blocker. And really, if you're going to have him on the field, I think you want to take advantage of what he does, not just as a receiver, but altogether playmaker. Because back in 2022, like, South Carolina legitimately used this guy all over the field. There were a couple of games where he was the started running back for South Carolina. He is a legit threat after the catch, or after the carry, I guess, after contact. He can either make guys miss, or he's even capable of running right through them, because he runs pretty low. And it's just what he can do as a pass catcher makes him so alluring, because he is a legit, I guess, pass catcher. Like, he's got decent length with 33-inch arms. He attacks the catch point exceptionally well. Won't, like in jump ball situations, will not wait for the ball to come to him, and will go out and get it. He's got multiple highlight catches on the film. The contested catch rate was relatively solid this year, 50%, and that's for an undersized guy. So you like to see that. But he is someone that can create separation, but he's better when he's not working his way back towards the ball. So like comeback routes, I really want throw that in his arsenal, or if a play breaks down, because he tends to gear down. He doesn't really run the route as fast as we're accustomed to seeing when he has to come back towards the quarterback. So I don't really know what might be the reason for that, but we know he's a really good athlete. He's a very fluid athlete, and when it comes to speed, athleticism, just ability as a pass catcher and as a ball carrier, there's a lot of very intriguing traits. Very similar body type, and probably utilization as like a Trey Burton. You're not going to use this guy as your main tight end, but you're going to bring him in as kind of this move tight end, or even throw him into the slot, maybe even throw him into the backfield as a pass catching option like a Kyle Juszczyk would. But Jaheim Bell is a very, very interesting prospect in this class.
Listen, I know you love the NFL draft as much as I do, and you're going to want a nice, hefty watch list of players during this college football season. Well, go ahead, check out my draft guide. You can purchase it for only $30 by Venmoing or PayPaling me. Links in the description. It's a one-time payment, and you get it for this whole draft cycle and forever and always, technically. It's a Google spreadsheet, so send me your email when you send the payment. I'll get you hooked up. You will see my current prospect rankings and big board, my full evals. And guess what? It updates throughout the whole draft cycle. So it's a great purchase, and it's a great way to support the channel. At number 8, I have Tip Reiman out of Illinois, coming in at 6'5", 271 pounds. The dude's an absolute unit and a really good athlete when you consider he has 271 pounds. Ran a 4.6, 440 at the combine, and then he recorded the fastest GPS speed at the Shrine Bowl among tight ends. The man can move, and he's got a huge catch radius, big ol' hands, and very sure hands. Like the no drops last season at Illinois, however, just wasn't really utilized as a pass catcher at Illinois. Shoot, there's instances of third downs where he's there pass blocking, and I get it. He's stupid strong, and it matches up with that size profile. Yeah, you look at him and you think, yeah, this is a blocking tight end. But with that speed, there's some capability, there's some potential there as a pass catcher, especially as someone who could be a nightmare up the seams. Now, it's not all pretty. Again, we have the small sample size as an actual pass catcher, so his contested catch numbers are limited, and the numbers aren't great there. But I think part of that is just the small sample size. And honestly, the dude is strong. I get it. Good blocker. Some of his technique could be a little more fleshed out, but I'm not too worried about him as a blocker. So I think immediately comes in. He could be an inline blocker as you develop the passing aspect of his game. So I think he immediately comes in as a good tight end 2 for really any team in the NFL. At number 7, I have Jared Wiley out of TCU, coming in at 6'6", 249 pounds. And he actually spent 3 years at Texas before transferring to TCU in 2022, where he got to enjoy their run to the national championship. And he actually set career marks in 2022, decided to come back, and he just rinsed and repeat and set career marks in 2023 on his way to becoming first team All Big 12. And he's got good prototypical size. Definitely could put on more mass, but I think he was playing around 6 or 240, 255, 254. So I'm not too worried about that, but you do have questions about his strength to hold up as a blocker. However, he was a very effective chip blocker there at TCU, where, you just kind of like, you chip the defender and then you go out and typically the flats, or maybe you kind of sit in the middle trying to find the soft zone and coverage. He was pretty effective in that role, and honestly, like, he's a feisty blocker. He'll go and get after. Just, you do kind of worry sometimes if he'll be able to hold his own against maybe more powerful defenders. But with his speed, 4.62 speed, yeah, he is a legit receiving threat. And on top of that, very sure hands. Only one drop through his whole career makes him a very enticing red zone target. However, not very dynamic after the catch. Like, I think 3 forced missed tackles. That was actually a career high. So yeah, he's not really going to do much. After that, ran a very limited route tree at TCU. Not to say that he can't be a bit more diverse in the NFL, because I definitely think he's capable of, like, the 3-cone time. Honestly, ain't half bad for him. It's about where you want your tight end to be. That's why I like the comp of Tyler Kroft, where he'll maybe function mainly as a big slot, but has no problem coming in to be a more inline role as like a tight end too. Currently, he is 150 on my big board, so he makes that top 150 for me. At number 6 is someone I am actually a big fan of in Dallin Holker out of Colorado State, coming in 6'3", 241 pounds, and yes, he's an older prospect. Big part of that is, well, he went to BYU, typically means mission trip, but he actually didn't go on a mission trip till after his freshman season at BYU. And then he returned after 2 years in 2021, where he had 4 starts. And then I think it was the following season where he played 3 games, decided to enter the transfer portal. And actually his wife I think she was running track for Colorado State at the time. So he decided to transfer to Colorado State. And this year ends up being a big breakout year for him. Like, legitimately had more snaps this season than he did combined the last 5 years at BYU. Granted, 2 of those were spent on a mission trip, so let's say 3 years. So yeah, this is kind of a 1-year breakout, but he's a relatively good athlete. I know the 4.78 numbers not great, but I think he moves a lot faster on film, and he has some just incredible catches. Like, he has a full display of highlight reel catches on tape. He can go and get after it. He is not afraid to extend for the ball and doesn't mind getting hit in the process. He can make catches away from his body. Again, the hands were really good. 5.9% drop rate. Very, very good. And on top of that, he was really good after the catch. He's a little shifty, man. A little shifty. He's able, despite being, having a little bigger body, he's able to wiggle around and make guys miss. But on top of that, he can also eat hits. 15 forced missed tackles this past season. Really, really nice. And honestly, as a blocker, he's at his best in motion. It's really, if you're going to take advantage of him as a blocker, that's probably what you want to do, because the lack of mass kind of shows up as a blocker, where he can sometimes just kind of get overwhelmed in that regard. And would be higher on my list if honestly he just tested better as an athlete. But like, I'm kind of in on him, man. I think I'd be willing to take him early as the 4th round. I don't know if he could sneak into that late like 3rd round picture, but it honestly would be awesome. That's where I had him prior to the testing. Like, I knew he was a good athlete, but I didn't think he was going to test as a great one. And I really wish that 4.78 number was a lot closer to sub 4.7 than it was to 4.8, but kind of is what it is. I got Zach Ertz as a comp, and that's probably kind of on the ceiling side of things when it comes to Holker. But like, all in all, man, I'm just a huge fan of his game. At number 5, I have Cade Stover at Ohio State, coming in at 6'4", 247, and he wasn't even playing tight end when he showed up at Ohio State. He was a defensive line recruit who didn't make the conversion or the transition to tight end until after his freshman season. And even then, the next 2 seasons, he was really just playing special teams. It was 2022 where he had that breakout season. But even after that, I was like, you know what? This guy's just not the most natural pass catcher, which shouldn't be surprising. He's still relatively new to the position. But this year, I thought the ball skills looked much better. Still, I don't think he's the most natural pass catcher, but the ball skills were definitely a heck of a lot better, where he was no drops. He was 60% of the contested catch, but I still don't feel like he's comfortable making catches away from his frame. But golly, dude, this guy is a walk-in house of bricks. He is tough to bring down. Yeah, he is. 8 forced missed tackles this past season, and you could tell he's a farm boy, because I think the NFL is going to love this dude's physicality. he doesn't mind rolling up his sleeves and doing the dirty work. And that's what you love about him as a blocker. And that's why I think that translates on top of just a heap of special teams experience. He's a very vocal leader. He was a team captain this past season. Like, there's just so many traits that I think the NFL is going to love about Cade Stover. Is he a guy that's going to consistently create separation as a pass catcher? No, not the most explosive guy, not like the twitchiest or wiggliest guy, but I think that's fine. And I really like the comp here as Dawson Knox. I think it could be a maybe not a high-end starting tight end, but maybe like a maybe middle of the pack starting tight end, or maybe even a high-end tight end too in the league. At number 4, I have Jatavion Sanders out of Texas, and this may be a hot take because he doesn't even crack my top 100. And I say that because I'm kind of worried about the size. He's coming in at 6'4", 245, but his testing wasn't that good. Like 4.69, I'm like, huh. You know what? He kind of did look a little lighter at Texas, and if he's not that good of an athlete, getting up to 245, kind of worried. I'm kind of worried about if he can put on weight and retain his athleticism. Kind of worried that he might be more of someone that you need to develop if you're going to have him on the field consistently. So I am scared about certain aspects of his game, but one thing you pull away from the tape is he is a phenomenal pass catcher. He can legit stretch the field as a receiver. You've seen him just attack the catch point so well. Another guy who had 0 drops this past season. He was fairly solid at the contested catch, 53.8% this past season. Very crisp route runner. And at the very least, he has experience working in line. Do I think he's the best blocker? No, I think he just kind of lacks that physicality, at least when it comes to being a blocker, because I think he attacks the catch point exceptionally well. He could do a better job of coming down with those balls, but I think he high points the football exceptionally well. He just needs to, he's got big hands. Just hold on to the football. Like, I go back to that Oklahoma game, and it was like down near the red zone. I can't remember if it was like a 4th down, but I think it was Bowman, the safety, who just like dislodged it. And I was like, man, that guy's like half your size. Just finish. So I'm just kind of curious when it comes to him if he might be a bit more of a developmental guy when it comes to what he can do right away. Like, if you want him to put on that size, because I'm going to be honest, man, I think he was playing at sub 240 at Texas. I think it was probably closer to like the 230, 235 range. And you're just not going to be able to do that or be that size and stay on the field consistently. So I'm thinking that he might be more of a developmental guy if you want to retain that athleticism while he puts on weight. So we'll see. But again, there's no questions when it comes to what he can do as a pass catcher. At number 3, I have Theo Johnson out of Penn State. And if you're unfamiliar with this story, with him and his brothers and his mother, how they fled abuse, were homeless for a little bit. It's very inspiring. So go ahead, check that sucker out. But he's coming in at 6'6", 259. So nice prototypical tight end size. But he brings elite athleticism with it. He ran a 4.57 40. He had a vert of 39.5 inches, a broad of 125 inches. He's a rare athlete for the position at that size. The problem is the potential never turned into production at Penn State. Part of that may have been the quarterback situation. Part of that it may have just been the utilization, because he really does have the potential to be a nightmare up the seams and just be a mismatch for linebackers and safeties. And really where I think he probably shined the most was in the red zone, where he was very consistent with his hands. 5.6% drop rate this past season, 75% at the contested catch. Very, very good numbers. So maybe a bit more of a dart though in terms of projection, just because of the lack of production. But there's no denying that the talent, the skill, the ability is there. It truly, truly is. Now, as a blocker, he's got the body for it, right? He's got the body. I think it just, from a technique standpoint, it's starting to come together. The overall understanding of blocking angles and whatnot, it'll eventually come along, so I'm not too worried about that. He can be a bit clunkier on more complex routes, but when it comes to like the basic tight end route tree, I ain't worried about him. I think he could flourish in the NFL, so I'm willing to bet on the traits when it comes to Theo Johnson, especially in this tight end class where at the top, outside of number 1, there's not really a lot of high-end talent. Coming in at number 2, I have Kansas State's Ben Sinnott, coming in at 6'4", 250 pounds, and he was initially a 0-star recruit coming out of high school. He was committed to South Dakota, decided to decommit, and just walk on at Kansas State, and it ends up paying dividends as 2 years later, he ends up being a first-team All-Big 12 in 2023. He was a third-team All-American, and I love this cat's game. I really, really do. He did whatever Kansas State asked him to do. Hey, go line up out wide. He got it done. Go line up in the slot. He got it done. Line up in line. He got it done. He's not afraid to put his nose in the action. And while I would say he's more of a willing blocker, he's a guy that typically likes to like go for the kill shot than actually like holding the line. But regardless, what I love most about him is his ability as a pass catcher, because he is a very smooth athlete. He runs his routes with good timing. He knows how to create separation. He keeps a good speed throughout his route. But what he does after the catch is phenomenal. 14 forced missed tackles this past season. He is a gritty player that's not afraid to go up and have to contend for the catch either. However, I will say he is someone who is a lot better at making catches within his frame than having to go outside of his frame to make the catch. He got better at that this past season, but I still think it's something that could be a bit of a concern heading into the NFL. On top of that, not a lot of special team experience, which I was kind of surprised by. So I don't know if that hurts him, but currently he's sitting here as my tight end 2 and at 74 on my current big board. Coming in at number 1, I have Brock Bowers out of Georgia. I know, you're shocked, but the guy's a hell of a good player. I know people put out that stupid combine pic of him standing next to Gronk. Guys, Gronk was a generational tight end. Gronk was a different type of tight end altogether. Go watch Brock Bowers' tape, and yeah, no, the guy is totally deserving of being a top 10, top 15 type of pick. He was a freshman team All-American his freshman year at Georgia, in the SEC at Georgia. And the following season, he won the John Mackey Award and was a first-team All-American. And guess what? It was so good in 2022, he just rinsed and repeated this past season while missing games. He's a hella good. He is a top-tier receiving threat with legitimate after-the-catch ability. He had 18 forced missed tackles this past season. He had 15 forced missed tackles the year prior. And I mean, dude, 18 forced missed tackles while missing games. He missed 3 games this year. Kind of good. And you best believe you ain't starting early at Georgia if you can't block. Now, is he the best blocker? He's a fine blocker. I think he's better as a move tight end, a guy that you want to get in motion if you're going to ask him to block, because he's not going to hold the line. He's not going to lay someone out. And that's typically where my George Kittle comp kind of falls off, because George Kittle can do that. He can lay out defensive linemen. And Brock Bowers, that's just probably not what you're going to expect from him. But I do like him maybe more as someone you put in motion and could go out and just lay someone out as long as you get him going. But again, man, why he's so highly regarded is because he is this chess piece. You could line him out wide and he will succeed. You could line him out in the slot, he will succeed. You'll line him in line at H-back, I don't care. You line him wherever, he's gonna succeed. He is that freaking good. I don't need him to test out. I already know the speed's gonna be hella good. You watch the tape, he feels more like a jumbo receiver out there. He is just hella good. Now, we're going to nitpick. I'm a little sad that the contested catch rate was down a little bit this year. I'm not worried about it. He could be a little stiff out of his breaks, but honestly, he's a lot more fluent than most of, if not all of the tight ends in this class. At this point, we're just kind of nitpicking for the sake of nitpicking. He's currently 7 on my big board. Where he goes, who knows, but whoever gets him is getting one hell of a future football player. But if you want more prospect rankings, I already did quarterback and defensive tackles, so check those down here. But as always, until next time, you be easy, my friends. Later.